Welcome to 2023 with Agnes Kunkel. In 2020, the world was hit by COVID-19. It was like a time machine. Find out what the world might look like in spring 2023 and how we will need to adapt. 2023, your window to a world beyond COVID-19. Saturday morning. Thomas leaves with his two daughters, Melanie and Christy, to do shopping for next week. It's April 2023. Flu season is not over yet, and many people still wear masks on public transport, like back in 2020 during COVID-19. It became clear how much this helps during flu season, and many people stuck to it. Thomas and the girls also wear masks. Anything else would be irresponsible. When Thomas forgets to put on his mask at the bus stop, Melanie immediately gives a nudge. "Daddy, please put on your mask." Their shopping habits have changed. Meat is rarely added to the shopping cart. It's neither environmentally friendly nor fair to the animals. However, if you look around, not much has changed in the shop compared to the times before COVID-19. One sees colored boards around indicating special offers. People have to cut on expenses as the economy is not particularly thriving and concerns about unemployment are still high. Thursday is Christy's birthday party. Christy asked for a big portion of ice cream for everyone at her party. Melanie heads to the shelf with organic ice cream. Thomas is looking at the price tags. "I don't think we can afford that." "Then let's skip it," Melanie says. "I don't eat ice cream, for which folks have been exploited on cocoa plantations." Christy starts to tear up quietly. Thomas and Melanie look at each other. Melanie says, "What kind of ice cream would you like?" Christy's eyes lighten up. "Salted caramel brownie, lemon cheesecake, and chocolate cookie." Thomas shakes his head. "What about chocolate and vanilla? It's on special offer." Christy reaches spontaneously into the freezer.
"Maybe we should take 3 packs of each kind so that we don't run out of one sort at my party."
Hello, I'm Agnes Kunkel, your host in 2023, your window to the world beyond COVID-19. Today we have 7.1 million infected so far and 410,000 people have confirmedly died from COVID-19. New hotspots emerge in Pakistan, Indonesia and South Africa. On the other side, 10,000 tourists from Germany are now allowed to fly to Mallorca in Spain as a pilot project. Today, it's 10th of June 2020. Our guest today is Stefan Hock. Stefan Hock, you are a studied economist, work as consultant and trainer in the field of leadership and communication. As I have heard, your personal interest is philosophy, cooking, rock music and motorbikes. Hello Stefan, welcome to our podcast.
Hello Agnes, thank you very much for inviting me. And hello everybody who's listening. Thanks a lot for this wonderful introduction, and it's true, I'm loving not only cooking but as well a little bit of philosophy, and I think this is the topic we have to talk about today.
Yes, great Stefan, great to have you here. And in the introduction we had this little story about the little girl Christy who is planning to have a little birthday party in the year 2023, and that the family is not very clear now what to do. Maybe buying ice cream that's very expensive but ecological and from the fair trade side okay, or maybe buying no ice cream, or buying the ice cream on sale where no one knows if someone is exploited on cacao plantations. So what is the philosopher's answer to these ethical dilemmas?
Oh, Agnes, I think this story you told us was a very nice one, and it's very well describing the dilemma which are currently in. I'm not sure whether a philosopher can give you a definite answer, but at least we can raise some questions which we consider crucial to this topic. And I have a couple of theses which I want to outline today and which I want to talk today. And one is that, and the first one is that Corona is not a health issue, it's an ethical issue. And these are the questions. It can be treated, Corona. Even severe cases can obtain some relief and increase the survival rate. But emergency care is expensive. Not only the treatment itself, but holding the capacities ready, and not for standard loads, for peak loads. In non-pandemic times, huge idle emergency room capacities may seem as luxury or even waste of money. But in pandemic times, they quickly become rare. And all of a sudden, medical staff had to decide whom to treat in emergency room and whom not. Means sentenced to death in the worst case. Military med staff is trained in this kind of decisions, called triage. Civil med staff rarely. And I envy none of them having to decide such cases. There is another decision to be made, prevention. As much as possible through curfews, shutdowns, interdictions, etc. Or let her go in order to obtain herd immunity? The latter would be pretty efficient, since the disease spreads fast and mortality is moderate compared to other plagues. But again, it would imply that there is an atrocious death toll, especially among the group of a high risk. Elderly, pre-stressed by other health issues, socially or economically underprivileged. We daily see the casualty numbers and can compare the countries where prevention worked with those and where it failed.
Yes, I guess I'm completely with you that COVID-19 is a very special disease, and that it's not so much, of course it's a severe disease, but maybe 100 years ago when we had the Hong Kong flu, I guess we would not have the scientific insight in the disease and the economic power just to say, okay, we now stop the complete economy and everyone goes on curfew to save some groups in our society. So I would guess, Stefan, isn't this a great step ahead to a better society, that we are now in the position to take care for these groups at risk?
It is a step. It's a giant step. We can do a lot, but we have to decide to do it. And we have to decide what to do. Of course, we know there are differing opinions what to do. Sweden took a different way than we did in Germany. China took a different way than US and UK. You see different results?
Yes, and so I think we are quite happy, as we are both living here in Germany, and I guess up to now had a quite comfortable way going ahead with this tricky, nasty disease.
We are happy to the extent that we have a low death toll. Really can congratulate ourselves to that, even though we still have to consider every single person who has died. But we complain about values we have to abandon, values we have to give up. More and more people are going out to the streets and say, end the curfew now, relieve us from the masks, etc. Effectively, what we do is we do a triage among values. Not only the triage with the infected, whom to treat and whom not, but which values to maintain now and which values even to suspend for a certain time. Okay. So most countries choose prevention, imposing severe restrictions on any public life. considered by many as a stranglehold of our civil liberties. It is, but it is triage. The freedom to go out anywhere and anytime, or the protection of the frail, the right to party, or the life of a few retirees. The crucial question becomes, when are those restrictions to end? Will we retain democratic control over this, or do we have to succumb to the verdict of scientists, or, what worries me the most, the verdict, the ideas of some politicians who don't listen to scientists?
When we now make the jump to the year 2023 and the idea that we had problems, even here in Germany, I guess we had problems. We didn't understand in the beginning the dimension of the disease. We acted a little bit late, and maybe was, in my opinion, was the most problematic issue. We weren't not at all prepared, and it was not that we were not be able to buy masks or all that stuff. I guess that's really not the aspect, but the organization. You remember maybe there had been these studies about pandemias in, I don't know exactly, around 2013 or so. Some task forces has made up plans what to do for pandemias, but in the organization, in the health organization, even in a country as Germany, it was not implemented. What do you think about, will it be better in 3-4 years? Will then be these things, will they be implemented?
You're entirely right. In 2019, so I'm talking about last year, we have not been prepared at all. In some kind of naive disbelief that something like COVID could happen. We ignored all warning voices from scientists or the World Health Organization. And we didn't prepare neither medically nor politically, socially, economically or ethically. It is at least positive that most of our scientists, politicians, fellow human beings, and those responsible for economy have managed to adapt rather fast. And this adaptation will continue. I'm very optimistic on that. It will not continue in giant steps, it will continue in small steps. And some of it will be forgotten in maybe a year from now or 2 years from now. Maybe in 2023 we will have forgotten, but when we have forgotten only 80%, we have a 20% advance.
So when I understand you correctly, you think in the handling of pandemics, readiness of protection equipment, readiness maybe of mathematical modeling capacities, when, I don't hope that this will hit us, but when the next pandemic will come around, then we might be better prepared on the aspect of protection equipment, and we might be better equipped on the area of health processes maybe. What stuff do you think we will forget in the next 2 to 3, 4 years?
It comes back to the values. What we will forget is that we have to sacrifice liberties and achievements. We have to sacrifice wealth, well-being for the benefit of others. Our medical equipment is excellent, we have it, but we need money to buy it, and the money is lacking somewhere else. And in human nature it is a common phenomenon that we tend to forget the bad things, which is a protective mechanism. And it's very good, because otherwise we would go crazy. And this protective mechanism will let us forget quite a few things about the negative sides of COVID-19. But what remains are technical progress, statistical data, a very high value statistical data,
yeah.
Political manuals and political prescriptions, what to do when, which are not discarded only because they have been drafted by a predecessor to the office. And that's what we will retain, and that's what will be an asset for us. We will develop maybe a vaccine, maybe some virostatics, but the next pandemic will not be COVID-19, it will be COVID something, it will be something else.
Yeah.
And we need to start anew. But maybe we have now better technology in developing such vaccines and virostatics.
When we rethink the little story in the beginning, the story tried to describe this dilemma of satisfaction. The little girl, Christy, she is thinking about satisfaction, having enough ice cream in her birthday party, and what she is maybe trading, she has some ideas about fudge brownie and cheesecake and all that fancy stuff she would like to have for her birthday party, that when she trades off not getting these fancy brands, that she wants more. As she is saying in the end, then let's get 3 packages of vanilla and chocolate ice cream. That's one aspect. And the other aspect is, of course, that the elder sister and her father are trading these more or less explicit ideas of being responsible for all the planet. Let's say the older girl, Melanie, she's thinking already about people maybe exploited on farms growing cacao and that stuff. And on the other hand, the sister crying. So some maybe people being exploited thousands of kilometers away, and a few centimeters away the little sister crying. And of course the father maybe having ideas of his own, what he wants to buy, and being scarce of money, maybe have to look after every penny and euro, and not to spend too much on ice cream. What do you think are in this little family the values and what they might have learned and what we might learn from this sample?
This example is, of course, showing something which is a bit tricky. You leave the most abstract decision to the youngest girl in the whole story. The positive thing is that the elder little girl already is thinking about that stuff. Let the young one grow a little bit. Give her ice cream this time.
May it be possible that you like ice cream yourself?
Yes, it may. It may. And I really do adore chocolate, hazelnut, and I really do adore the high quality one. I don't want to cite any brand names.
Do you think that's an important question to me. Do you think that when we now have these dashboards, maybe from the Johns Hopkins University, where I always pick the information I provide on the beginning of the podcast, maybe seeing this map of the world, and it started red in China, and then Italy, and then France and Spain, and then it all over United States it became red, and now it's in Africa. Do you think people understand or have a more open view on the world as they see the map? I'm very convinced what you see, that does something to the way you are thinking. That when we see every day this map all over the world, that we get a little bit more responsible of course not the 6-year-old girl for the ice cream, but we, the grown-up society, or the grown-ups in the society, that we get more connected maybe to people in Peru. I guess Peru is a country which is hit very hard in COVID-19. Do we get more connected to these people?
My opinion is that these representations, like the one from the Johns Hopkins University, which you cited, are still pretty much abstract and not easy to understand. And even highly educated people did not understand what they see. And if you look back, of course, looking back is always easier than looking forward. If you look back, you see phenomenon like Spain and Italy suffering already so heavily from the pandemic, while countries like especially the United States did not even start to prepare. And this shows me that do not believe too much in abstract understanding.
There is another aspect we have now, all this possibility of connecting so easily via these video conferences. We don't name companies who provide these services, but it's really easy, it's cheap, and just to have a mobile phone typically is enough. Would it help maybe to make it easier, or when there are possibilities to see and to connect to the people working all around the world for our products, from clothing to the things we eat and all that stuff, that this could create more intense links to these people. Maybe in Bangladesh, maybe you remember the woman that went to the street, they were not paid, as the big clothing chains, the apartment stores, they cancelled the contracts, and the companies did not pay the women who were working in these companies in Bangladesh, and they were going to the streets and fighting for their money. And that when these pictures came to our news here in Germany and people said we don't want this, immediately the big clothing companies said, oh, of course, we will pay and we will give money to our contractors. Let's say when you look in the details, it was a little bit mixed, but they reacted. Or the other story that comes to my mind immediately, that I guess one of the big sporting equipment companies said they want to get some, they want to reduce rents for their stores. And everyone immediately said, oh, they are really earning a lot of money and now they don't want to pay the rent for their stores. And immediately a few days later it was said, it was not a misunderstanding, but of course, this highly well-known brand will pay, of course, the rent to the for the stores. So I guess there is an impact.
There will be an impact. Sure, there will be an impact. It's an old wisdom that pictures speak louder than words, as action speaks louder than words. Very old wisdom, and it will not. This will continue, and I think all these modern integrative communication means will forge the global world closer together. So I'm a strong believer of global integration. We need not only global integration, we need global cooperation, global coordination. It's crucial to defend against phenomena like the current pandemics. It's crucial as well to defend a kind of equilibrium at global economy. So only knowing by pictures and knowing by actions of what happens in Bangladesh when they are where the fabrics, where the workshops for clothing are, etc. Only knowing this makes us aware of what we buy. Nevertheless, we are greedy. We will continue, and we will look for the inexpensive T-shirt. Maybe it will help a little bit and to pay not only €5 but €6.50, which is already something. The story with this big sportswear manufacturer shows a different thing. It's a question about equal and just distribution of the burden of the pandemic. It will have an unequal incidence. People are hit differently. There are some which are severely hit, those who lose their lives, those who lose their jobs, and there are others which are hit not. So we will have to ask the question whether to some extent relief in rent may equalize the distribution of the burden between lessor and lessee. Why should the lessor bear nothing of the burden and leave it entirely to the lessee? But this is not to be decided on the individual case. This is decided on a global, on a society, and even on a worldwide scale. Equalize, redistribute the burden. Remember, after the Second World War in Germany, you had the so-called Lastenausgleichsfonds.
Yes.
Those who had been hit by the bombs received some subsidies from those who had not been hit by bombs, and those who could retain their property unaffected by any destruction.
Yes. So maybe when you talk about these things, my idea was maybe when you look at it in a global perspective, maybe both the one who is the owner of the object and the company who has rented the shops, maybe both should distribute some of their resources to people producing the shoes and sports clothing that is sold in these shops, as maybe these people are much more severely hit in this situation than both the well-known global brand company and maybe the well-to-do property owner.
Sure. This cannot be a microeconomic issue. It must be a macro issue, and macro means in this case global. From the very last consumer up to the producer of cotton working somewhere in a cotton field in Egypt or in United States or wherever. Who retains which share of the value added which is produced over the whole chain?
Exactly. When we come to our final conclusion for this episode of our podcast, on the level of the family, to come back in 2 to 3 years, will you expect that in the families, maybe from the granny to the parents to the smaller children, or the little bit, of course 6 years is a little bit young, but those who understand what happened in 2020, that there will be more discussion about this distribution of burdens and positive effects?
I think it is already. There is.
Yeah, but will it stay? Now of course we have the discussion, but will it stay?
It has even been before the pandemic, so it will stay, the discussion. And this is an old I'm not a Keynesian, I'm not a Marxist, I'm more tending towards a market liberalism. But the market liberalism needs checks and balances.
Yeah.
And it's these checks and balances which will prove crucial whether we can still live relatively freely and do the things we want to do and are not planned by some committees in some ivory towers which say production must be this and distribution must be that. So I'm very optimistic that this discussion will continue and prevail and even be intensified in the future.
Okay, so that is a very optimistic view. And your personal decision, when we now talk about ice cream, chocolate ice cream and all that stuff, will you draw some personal or clothing and all that, will you draw personal consequences from that we here are quite privileged in many ways and draw on the work of many people around the world that are not so privileged?
I think I do. I'm not sure whether I really succeed in doing that, but I think I do.
When it comes to chocolate ice cream, it's a very difficult decision.
When it comes to chocolate ice cream, I really do only eat fair trade chocolate, and I love fair trade tea, and I love fish when I eat it, which is not endangered and certified by the Maritime Stewardship Council. With respect to clothing, I don't know so exactly because it's quite a long time that I buy the last t-shirts, but it have not been the cheapest ones. Alone for my size, I need a little bit bigger ones, you know. I try to think of that. I can't manage it in every aspect of life. But in some aspects of life, I really adhere to such principles.
So let's stick to the fair trade chocolate ice cream.
Yes, biological wine, fair trade. I'm one of the many who started to make bread in my home with biological grains, and I even managed to get some yeast. That's nice.
Okay, so let's hope that your optimistic outlook to 2023 will come true. And thank you very much, Stefan. Maybe later on we will do a follow-up in a few months. What from your ideas had come true?
Yes, I'd love to.
That would be great, Stefan.
Thanks
bye-bye.
a lot. Thanks, and bye-bye to everybody out there listening, and take care. Stay healthy.
Okay, bye-bye.
You've been listening to 2023. To get in touch with us with your comments or ideas, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, just email hello@20-23.earth. You can find even more material, including transcripts of our interviews, on our website at 20-23.earth. Please keep in mind, the content of this podcast is our opinion. We work hard to get our facts right. However, if you find something that can be corrected or improved, please email us at hello@20-23.earth. If you haven't already done so, we'd be grateful if you would subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you happen to listen. Thanks for listening, stay safe, and there will be springtime in 2023.